Hey everybody, so today is our ninth day of our Unit 0. It's September 3rd, 2020. Let's get to it. Remembering our virtual class norms, and then our objectives. So today we'll basically just be talking about adding and subtracting fractions in different situations, and we'll be using models as well to do that. Let's go ahead and get started with adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators. So their denominators are the same. Sorry about that.
So we're asked to add 3/15 plus 7/15 and then simplify the answer. So just the process when you add fractions is if they already, well, first of all, if they're not mixed numbers, and neither of these are, and if they have the same denominator, in this example, the denominators are already the same. The denominator is 15. So if you add these two fractions, your sum is going to have the same denominator, 15. And your numerator is just going to be the sum of the numerator. So it's going to be 3 plus 7, or it's going to be equal to 10 over 15. Now, if we wanted to simplify this, we look for the greatest common factor in both the 10 and the 15. And as far as I can tell, 5 is the largest number that goes into both of them. So divide the 10 by 5. So you divide the 10 by 5, and you divide the 15 by 5. And you get 10 divided by 5 is 2, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. You get 2/3. Now, to understand why this works, let's draw it out. Let's draw.
Alright, so I skipped the drawing out part because I think this is very simple and we already know this, so I kept the video short. Just once again, those steps for adding and subtracting fractions with like denominators, we're either going to add or subtract the numerators depending on the operation. Then we keep the denominators the same, and then we'll simplify it. Next, we're going to show a video about adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators, so their denominators are not the same.
Let's say that we have the fraction 9/10, and I want to add to that the fraction 1/6. 1/6. What is this? What is this going to equal? So when you first look at this, you say, oh, wait, I have different denominators here. It's not obvious how I add these. And you'd be right. And the way to actually move forward is to find a common denominator, to convert both of these fractions into fractions that have a common denominator. So how do you think about a common denominator? Well, a common denominator is going to have to be a common multiple of these two denominators, of 10 and 6. So what's a common multiple of 10 and 6? And it's usually simplest to find the least common multiple. And a good way of doing that is start with the larger denominator here, 10, and say, okay, is 10 divisible by 6? No. Okay, now, is 20 divisible by 6? No. Is 30 divisible by 6? Yes. 30 is divisible by 6. So I'm just going through the multiples of 10 and saying, well, what is the smallest multiple of 10 that is divisible by 6? And that's going to be 30. So I can rewrite both of these fractions as something over 30. So 9 over 10, how would I write that as something over 30? Well, I multiplied the denominator. I'm multiplying the denominator by 3. So I've just multiplied the denominator by 3. So if I don't want to change the value of the fraction, I have to do the same thing to the numerator. I have to multiply that by 3 as well. Because now I'm just multiplying the numerator by 3 and the denominator by 3, and that doesn't change the value of the fraction. So 9 times 3 is 27. So once again, 9/10 and 27/30 represent the same number. I've just written it now with the denominator of 30. And that's useful because I can also write 1/6 with the denominator of 30. Let's do that. So 1/6 is what over 30? And I encourage you to pause the video and try to think about it. So what did we do to go from 6 to 30? We had to multiply by 5. So if we multiply the denominator by 5, we have to multiply the numerator by 5 as well. So 1 times 5 is 5. So 9/10 is the same thing as 27/30, and 1/6 is the same thing as 5/30. And now we can add. And it's fairly straightforward. We have a certain number of 30ths added to another number of 30ths. So 27/30 plus 5/30, well, that's going to be 27. That's going to be 27 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5/30ths. Plus 5/30ths, which of course is going to be equal to, what is this? 32/30ths. 32 over 30. And if we want, we could try to reduce this fraction. We have a common factor of 32 and 30. They're both divisible by, let's see, they're both divisible by 2. So if we divide the numerator and the denominator by 2, numerator divided by 2 is 16. Denominator divided by 2 is 15. So this is the same thing as 16/15ths. And if I wanted to write this as a mixed number, 15 goes into 16 one time with the remainder 1. So this is the same thing as 1 and 1/15. Let's do another example. Let's say that we wanted to add 1/2 to 11/12 to 11 over 12. And I encourage you to pause the video and see if you can work this out. Well, like we saw before, we want to find a common denominator. If these had the same denominator, we could just add them immediately. But we want to find a common denominator because right now they're not the same. Well, what we want to find is a common multiple of 2 and 12. And ideally, we'll find the lowest common multiple of 2 and 12. And just like we did before, let's start with the larger of the two numbers, 12. And we could just say, well, 12 times 1 is 12, so that you could view that as the lowest multiple of 12. And is that divisible by 2? Yeah, sure, 12 is divisible by 2. So 12 is actually the least common multiple of 2 and 12. So we could write both of these fractions as something over 12. So 1/2 is what over 12? Well, to go from 2 to 12, you multiply by 6. So we'll also multiply the numerator by 6. And we see 1/2 and 6/12, these are the same thing. 1 is half of 2, 6 is half of 12. And how would we write 11/12 as something over 12? Well, it's already written as something over 12. 11/12 already has 12 in the denominator, so we don't have to change that. 11/12, and now we're ready to add. So this is going to be equal to 6. This is going to be equal to 6 plus 11. 6 plus 11 over 12. Over 12. We have 6/12 plus 11/12 is going to be 6 plus 11 over 12, which is equal to 6 plus 11 is 17/12. If we want to write it as a mixed number, that is what? 12 goes into 17 one time with the remainder 5. So 1 and 5 over 12. Let's do one more of these. This is strangely fun. All right. Let's say that we want
So our steps for adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators are: first, we're going to check to see if the denominators are the same. Two, our second step would be to find the least common denominator by listing least common multiple. I don't know why that says denominator. By listing out the multiples of both denominators. Then we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator of each fraction by the factor needed to make the denominators equal. Then we simplify the fraction. If the answer is an improper fraction, we can write it as a mixed number. All right, so we're going to do an example. So there's going to be a question like this, but it's going to say find their sum, and it's going to ask you to identify both fractions. So I know it's blurry, but all of these are 1/6 for that first box. 1/6. So we only see one highlighted of those. So we're looking for 1/6 plus, and then these are 1/3 at the bottom, and we see two 1/3 highlighted. So then we're going to make that 2/3. So since these denominators are not the same, we have to make them the same. So we know that 3 goes into 6, so we can make this f fraction with something over 6. So in order to make that, I'm going to erase my screen real quick. In order to make 2/3 a fraction over 6, we're going to multiply times 2, both times 2 so that they're equal, and that will be 6 and 4, so 4 over 6. So in reality, this problem we're adding 1/6 plus 4/6. the denominator the same, and then our answer is 5/6. Alright, so for our next example, we're going to find the difference. So we're going to find the difference. We're going to be subtracting. So first we need to find our two fractions. So once again, I know it's a little blurry, but these blocks are representing 1/3. There's 3 boxes, 1 whole, 2 are shaded. So 2/3 is our first. We're going to subtract 2/3 from, and then the second row of boxes. There's 5 boxes, 1 whole, that makes them 1/5. There's 3 shaded, so 3/5. So now I'm going to find the lowest common multiple of 3 and 5. So then I just multiply this one by 2. I'm just going to list them out to make it easier. So 10 does not divide evenly into 3, so that one doesn't work. 15, yes. So I'm going to make this fraction something over 15. So I'm going to clear out my screen real quick. So I'm going to make 2/3 equal something over 15. So in order to get from 3 to 5, we multiply times 5. So we need to multiply the top times 5 as well. And then 2 times 5 is 10, so we have 10 over 15. So our first fraction is 10 over 15, and that's the exact same as 2/3. They're equal, and we're going to subtract 3 over, not 3 over 5. We got to, sorry, I made a mistake. We have to convert that one as well, and I'll convert it over here. So we need to do 3 over 5 is equal to something over 15. To get there, we multiply by 3. 3 times 3 is 9, so 9 over 15. 9 over 15. And then our answer is 1/15. So that's it for today. Don't forget to take your exit ticket on Edulastic. If you have trouble, please G-chat me. Truman State, your next class is at 10:20, and UCO, your next class is at 12 p.m. Don't forget to stay in the Zoom call to work on the independent practice with Mr. Juarez if you need it. Have a great day, y'all.